Every morning at 5:30 a.m., William Tuttle arrived at MGM's makeup department to begin transforming contract players into the flawless images audiences expected. For 15 years, he was Judy Garland's primary makeup artist, which meant he saw something few others did: her face before the mask went on. In those early morning hours, before the lights and cameras and performances, Judy would sit in his chair and he would see the truth that makeup was designed to hide. The exhaustion that no amount of concealer could fully cover, the trembling hands from too many pills, the eyes that revealed decades of damage even as he painted them to sparkle for audiences. Decades after Judy's death, in interviews that were never widely publicized, William revealed what he witnessed during those intimate morning sessions. This isn't about glamour or Hollywood magic. This is about what one man saw when he looked at Judy Garland's unguarded face every single day. William Tuttle wasn't just any makeup artist. He was one of Hollywood's most respected craftsmen, eventually becoming the first makeup artist to receive an honorary Academy Award. His work shaped how stars appeared on screen, and he took pride in his artistry. But working with Judy taught him something that complicated his professional satisfaction. Sometimes makeup wasn't about enhancing beauty, it was about hiding damage. Their professional relationship began in the early 1940s when Judy was still a teenager and William was establishing himself at MGM. The first time she sat in his chair, he was struck by how young she looked without makeup, almost childlike. Studio executives had sent specific instructions about how she should appear: older, more sophisticated, with any imperfections completely erased. William followed those instructions, beginning a routine that would continue for years. But as their working relationship developed, William began noticing changes that troubled him. Judy would arrive for makeup sessions, showing signs of obvious exhaustion. Her skin would be pale, almost gray. Her eyes would be puffy or bloodshot. She would tremble slightly while sitting in his chair, hands gripping the armrests. William recognized these as symptoms of pharmaceutical use, though he didn't initially understand the full scope of what studios were doing to their young performers. What made William's perspective unique was the intimacy of the makeup chair. For 30 to 45 minutes each morning, he worked inches from Judy's face in bright, unforgiving light that revealed every detail. He saw things that cameras and audiences never would: the fine lines appearing too early, the skin damage from harsh studio lights and constant makeup, the physical toll of relentless schedules. The makeup chair became a confessional of sorts, where Judy's body told truths her publicity materials denied. William later described feeling complicit in a deception that bothered him increasingly over the years. His job was to make Judy look healthy, rested, and beautiful, regardless of her actual condition. He became skilled at covering dark circles that revealed sleepless nights, hiding the slight puffiness that came from medication, creating the illusion of vitality when the person in his chair was barely functioning. His artistry was being used to enable exploitation. The morning conversations in the makeup chair ranged from light gossip to profound confessions. Judy would sometimes talk about her struggles, her fears, her desperate desire to be seen as more than a product. William, maintaining professional boundaries but also genuine care, would listen while his hands worked. He couldn't solve her problems, couldn't protect her from the studio system, but he could offer the small comfort of being heard. One particular morning in 1949 stood out in William's memory for the rest of his life. Judy arrived for makeup looking worse than he had ever seen her. She had clearly been crying recently. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the coffee someone had brought her. William asked if she was okay, and she broke down completely, sobbing in his chair about the pressure, the pills, the feeling that she was losing herself. He stopped working and just sat with her, offering tissues and quiet support, knowing that in 30 minutes she would need to be camera-ready, regardless of her emotional state. What haunted William was watching the transformation each morning. The damaged, exhausted young woman who arrived would gradually disappear as he applied makeup. By the time he finished, she looked like the Judy Garland the public expected: glamorous, vibrant, perfect. But William knew the truth underneath the foundation and lipstick. The transformation felt less like artistry and more like covering up evidence of ongoing harm. The physical changes William observed over the years told a story that studio publicity carefully concealed. In her late teens and early 20s, Judy's face still had youthful resilience. By her mid-20s, William was seeing premature aging that concerned him. By her late 20s, when she was fired from MGM, the damage was substantial. Years of pharmaceutical use, sleep deprivation, and stress had aged her in ways that required increasingly sophisticated makeup techniques to hide. William also witnessed how Judy's relationship with her own appearance had been poisoned by studio control. She would study her face in the mirror with evident dissatisfaction, pointing out perceived flaws that William didn't even notice. Studio executives had spent years criticizing her appearance, and she had internalized every negative comment. The mirror showed her distorted reflections shaped by other people's judgments rather than objective reality. As their professional relationship continued, William tried in small ways to push back against the exploitation he witnessed. He advocated for more reasonable makeup schedules that wouldn't require 5:30 a.m. calls. He suggested less harsh lighting that would be easier on Judy's skin. He argued against some of the more extreme appearance demands from executives. These were small gestures, ultimately ineffective against systemic pressures, but they represented his attempts to do something beyond just applying makeup. When Judy was fired from MGM in 1950, William lost regular contact with her. He would occasionally see her at industry events or work with her on specific projects, but the daily intimacy of the makeup chair ended. He watched her subsequent career from a distance, following the patterns of comeback and collapse that defined her later years. He recognized in news photos and television appearances the same signs of damage he had seen up close in his makeup chair. What William revealed in his later interviews was how the makeup department functioned as a front line in Hollywood's exploitation of performers. Makeup artists were expected to hide the evidence of overwork, pharmaceutical abuse, and physical damage. They were taught techniques specifically designed to conceal the symptoms of the system's cruelty. The artistry that audiences admired was often artistry in the service of covering up institutional harm. William also spoke about the emotional toll of his work with Judy. He had genuinely cared about her as a person, not just as a face to be painted. Watching her suffer while being powerless to help created lasting guilt and sadness. He wondered if he should have spoken up more forcefully, refused to participate in the deception, done something more than applying makeup and offering quiet sympathy. But William also recognized the impossible position he occupied. If he had refused to make Judy camera-ready, the studio would have simply assigned another makeup artist. His individual resistance wouldn't have protected her or changed the system. He was one worker in a vast machinery of exploitation, capable of offering small kindnesses, but incapable of stopping the grinding mechanisms that were destroying her. When Judy died in 1969, William was deeply affected. He had last worked with her a few years earlier and had been shocked by how much her appearance had deteriorated. The face he had known so intimately was ravaged by years of abuse and neglect. The young woman who had once sat in his chair at MGM was gone, replaced by someone who looked decades older than her actual age. In his interviews about working with Judy, William was careful to honor her dignity while also telling difficult truths. He described her talent, her kindness, her humor despite everything she endured. But he also testified to the systematic damage he witnessed, the ways the studio system used makeup and other tools to hide exploitation. His testimony provided evidence from a unique vantage point, someone who literally saw Judy's face transformed each day from reality to illusion. What Williams' account reveals is how many people in Hollywood knew what was happening to performers like Judy, but felt powerless to intervene. The makeup artists, costume designers, hairstylists, and other craftspeople worked intimately with these young performers. They saw the damage up close. But their positions in the studio hierarchy gave them no power to change the fundamental dynamics of exploitation. The makeup chair, in Williams' telling, becomes a metaphor for Hollywood's relationship with truth. Each morning, he covered reality with illusion, hiding evidence of harm to create images that sustained profitable fantasies. The audiences who saw Judy on screen were seeing Williams' craftsmanship as much as they were seeing Judy herself. and that craftsmanship was being used to enable continued exploitation by making the damage invisible. Today, when we look at photographs and films of Judy Garland, we're seeing the work of artists like William Tuttle. The flawless appearance was achieved through skill and effort, but it was also achieved through concealment. Behind every perfect image was a makeup artist who had seen the unguarded face and knew what the camera would never show. William's testimony reminds us that Hollywood's golden age glamour was built on hidden suffering, made invisible through the work of craftspeople who had no choice but to participate in the system that employed them.